make macarons without almond flour using plain or all-purpose flour. Can you tell which one of these is made with all-purpose flour versus almond flour? I'll give you a few chances to look at it. I'm going to show it to you unfilled and then filled with a chocolate ganache. Can you see any differences that might indicate which one is the imposter and which one is the real macaron? Now let's bite into it. Which one of these macarons look like the fake one? Tell me if you have an idea. If you were to have guessed this one is the imposter, you are absolutely right. It makes a very pretty macaron. I think it's very lovely, but I don't necessarily recommend making them. And I'm going to tell you why. Hello and welcome to Jackson's Job, where I do the experiments so you don't have to. And if you want to follow along, here are the ingredients that I used for this recipe. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar, 100 grams, and to that we're going to add in 1/2 cup of all-purpose or plain flour, that's 50 grams. And we're going to put this through a sifter, and I like to sift it 3 times, but you can sift it just once. And I'm not going to make you watch me sift this 3 times, but I did think you'd like to see my special little helper today. Let's say hello to Roxanne, everyone. She is just about as goofy as Maggie. You can tell that Maggie helped raise her. Dog fur is going to be in everything. And this is a fine example of why I don't sell anything I make. You're going to get either dog fur or saliva in your product if I did. Okay, the whole purpose of sifting is to get rid of the lumps. If you do not have a sifter, you can use a whisk or even a fork to break up the lumps. However, if you're going to be making macarons a lot, you really want to invest in a nice sifter. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. This one cost me just a couple of bucks. In a large bowl, I have 2 large egg whites, that's 60 grams. To that, I'm going to add in 1/8 cup or 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, that's 30 grams. And I'm going to mix this until it forms soft peaks. I like to do this on a low speed. That way it doesn't have a lot of air bubbles. At first it will get nice and foamy, but when you move the bowl around, it will tilt easily. You want to continue to mix this until you get soft peaks, and when you tilt the bowl, it doesn't slide around. Theoretically, you should be able to turn the bowl upside down and it won't fall out. Now, because we are making macarons without almond flour, there is no flavoring other than sugar and flour. To flavor these, I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract or 5 milliliters. And this is one of the flaws of making macarons with all-purpose or plain flour. They're just kind of tasteless. It's not very pleasant, to be honest. So you're going to have to add in some sort of flavoring to it. Once you get to soft peaks, you are going to have to decide what kind of flavoring you want to make these. Now you could use lemon extract, orange extract, any kind of flavoring you can think of, even cotton candy if that's what you want to go for. But you're going to need to add in some kind of flavoring or these are going to be absolutely awful. They're just going to be sugary and not tasty. Now we need to fold in our flour and powdered sugar mixture. This is where you're going to see Macaron Maggie hovering in the background waiting for her special treat. We're going to fold this in gently and we're going to be even more gentle than if we were using almond flour. The one thing I really noticed the difference when you're making macarons with all-purpose or plain flour is that you have to be really careful during the macaronage stage because it can deflate very quickly. And I think that's just the way that the flour incorporates with the ingredients. Now, the one thing I really enjoy about making macarons with all-purpose flour is if you are new to the process, you really can learn how to macaronage and not spend a lot of money. Almond flour is quite expensive in comparison to all-purpose or plain wheat flour. And this is one thing I will say, if you are new to macarons and you are struggling learning the macaronage steps, this is a perfect thing to practice with because once you master how to fold in wheat flour, you are not going to have any problems learning how to macaronage with actual almond flour. So you kind of get a win-win there. You want to take it very slowly. You want to scrape around the outside and cut through the middle, making sure you're scraping at the bottom. Do this slowly and gently so you are deflating the batter, but not too much until you get all those ingredients incorporated. You want to make sure you get all the flour and powdered sugar incorporated before you start deflating too much air. If you need to, scrape the batter off the side of your spatula so you don't deflate that part too much. At first it looks like it doesn't want to incorporate at all, but just continue to mix slowly, going around the outside, through the middle, making sure to scrape on the bottom and kind of flipping it over as you go. You want to make this mixture until it's nice and shiny and it just starts to ribbon off your spatula and it starts to sink back into the batter. Now you don't have to have it sink completely back into the batter and level off. You might want to stop a little bit ahead of time, especially if you're new. If you mix this too far, you will have hollow shells and it will not work. This is a classic one for me. I forgot to put the plastic bag inside of the cup and I started to transfer the batter into the cup without the plastic bag and caught myself and spilled it all over the counter. How embarrassing. Now I was going to cut this out completely, but I promised you guys I would show mistakes along the way just for some comic relief and to encourage you to keep baking because we all make them, but we can still become successful in the kitchen. Now let's do it the right way this time. Carefully transfer this mixture into your piping bag so you don't deflate the mixture any further. If you are having trouble with this step and you're finding that your macarons are completely deflating by the time you get it into your piping bag, then you want to just stop folding it a little bit early. So now we're just going to take a baking sheet and we're going to put some parchment paper down and we are going to pipe these into circles. And we're going to make them about 1.5 inches. That's around, I want to say 3.8 centimeters in diameter. Don't worry if they look terrible at first. This comes with practice. Now I will tell you the texture of macarons that are made with all-purpose flour are very unique and it's kind of hard to describe and you're going to have to taste it to know what I'm talking about. It's not going to taste like a macaron. So why would you even want to make these if they aren't even that great? Well, they are good if you don't know what a macaron tastes like. And if you have a special someone in your life that's always wanted a macaron but is allergic to nut flour, this is a perfect recipe for them. They can still enjoy that experience, get a nice tasting cookie, and really know that you put a lot of effort and time into making them happy. Here's another difference I noticed with making macarons with all-purpose flour as opposed to using almond flour. There's a lot more air bubbles. You can eliminate these air bubbles by taking time and poking them with a toothpick, but this is going to take a very, very, very long time because there's micro bubbles everywhere. This is cosmetic and you don't have to do this step, but if you want them to have a smooth shell, you pop those little micro bubbles that formed. Once we have these all piped out, we're just going to let them sit until this skin forms. And what a skin means is they dry out on top, and when you touch it lightly with your finger, nothing sticks to it. This can take anywhere from 15 minutes to several hours. The more humid it is, the longer it's going to take. Once they are dried to the touch, that is when I actually preheat my oven. And I preheat it to 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius. And then I will bake it 16 to 20 minutes. The one thing I did notice is these bake up a lot faster than a regular macaron. The other thing I noticed is they're more prone to cracking. So you may want to dry them another 15 to 20 minutes after the skin forms to try to prevent the cracking. The other thing I noticed is these really stick to the parchment paper or silicone mat. If you bake them to the point that they no longer stick, they are dry in the middle and they are chalky and overdone. One way I've found to get them off of the parchment paper easier is to gently lift up the entire sheet, flip it upside down, and use your fingernail and kind of scrape on the back of the parchment paper and help it off of there. If you try to peel these off of here, a lot of time it will separate the tops from the bottoms. So at the end of my experiment, would I make these again? Absolutely. They're great for people with allergies to nuts, and also it gives you a very cheap way to learn how to macaronage. Would I eat them? Not necessarily. They're not my favorite. But they aren't terrible. They just don't taste like a macaron. You have to try it to know what I'm talking about. It's got this interesting texture. It's like chewy. The outside's a little more crisp, or it's like a circus peanut meets angel food cake meets macaron. It's very unique. And when you open it up, it looks pretty comparable to a regular macaron. But again, it's all going to come down to whether or not you want to eat it. For those that follow along, you guys should know Macaron Maggie by now. She has gotten that nickname because she is absolutely obsessed with them, and that's another reason to make these. These are dog friendly. So let's get our taste testers and see what they think about the flavor. Here is our old buddy, Mr. Raymond. He is really excited. He's so excited he's actually jumping up on me, which he never does. And here comes Maggie, enthusiastic as always. You would never know that she's going to turn 10 soon. She is absolutely obsessed with food. I swear she must be part lab somewhere. She is a sweet, sweet girl, and she makes me laugh every day. Mr. Raymond is just patiently waiting in the background as Maggie is sliding all over the countertop, but she doesn't care. She's so excited about her macarons. As you can see, Macaron Maggie approves of this recipe. She thinks it's amazing. She can't get enough of them. Maggie is literally obsessed with macarons. She has earned that nickname well. And she has taught Roxanne these are something very special. Yes, I know, I have 2 counter surfing dogs now. What was I thinking? I really should have thought that one through, but it's okay. They're too cute not to love. I hope you enjoyed this experiment on macarons. If you want to know more, I'm sure Maggie would be happy to guest star in her own special videos. And in the meantime, happy baking.